Hello, we're here at AQS Quilt Week Fall Paducah, and I'm here with Flora Joy, and you have another one of these 3D quilts that everybody goes crazy over.
I'm glad they do. I hope they all go home and make one.
Well, and many of you will remember one of your other quilts is the one that has Jackie O and Mother Teresa and
Oprah.
Anyway, so I know you've all enjoyed that one. Well, this one is about magical toys. Of course, everybody wants to know, how do you do this 3D part?
Well, it's doable. Anybody who can run a sewing machine can actually do this, because you're simply taking pictures, cutting them into 1-inch strips or 3/4 inch strips, and putting them side by side and then pleating them. So this turns out to be a pleated insert.
So this is actually then printed on fabric after you get the cutting of the photos done?
Right, after you do that.
And you did a little book about this,
we
too,
did,
didn't you?
AQS did.
And what's the title?
Trispective.
And so that book is available at the AQS booth if you're here at the show, or through shopaqs.com. All right, now, you have a different border on this quilt.
Right. I didn't want to bore people by having the same kinds of border. So I looked at what happens in my life, and I love working with kids. I'm a retired school teacher. And once you teach school for quite a while, you just never forget that kids need something to stimulate them other than a textbook. So this has a curriculum plan built into it with questions on the side that they're to unzip, and when they're unzipping the questions, I thought, we'll put zippers. So we have stitched zippers around all 4 of the borders, just to make it more interesting for kids.
Sure. And now I was intrigued with this little border, and tell us what that is, because that surprised me.
Well, I wanted to join those two and wanted it to be different. And I thought of the different ways that in quilt classes that we have learned the techniques. So that is couched yarn. I looked at my yarn to see what would match the green and the orange, and I had green and orange yarn, so I tried to see how many strands of yarn that I could get into my foot, and I could get 5, so that's 5 strands of yarn that blend those 2 edges.
So
together.
That means you have a 9mm foot to be able to get
mean
that many,
that
doesn't
I have
it?
That, yes, and it holds them in place, and it makes you as a quilter look good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, it's beautiful.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, and so then I guess something else to do with children are all these buttons.
And they come up and count them.
Do they really?
They do. So we just call it math. But I enjoy the embellishments, particularly tiny objects. Now, it took a little while to get that row of the green buttons and that row, and then I decided on those 2 parts of the border, I didn't want it to be the same thing, so I stacked them, put the green ones in, but then I took larger green ones and then orange ones, and then the smaller green one on top to make them consistent. And that was just more fun in the process.
Well, and then you weren't done, because you had to put a triple binding on the edge, didn't you?
I had to do that. I started with the orange, and it didn't work the way I wanted it to. And actually, it's a quadruple binding. There's a piping of the light green, and there's one of the dark green, and then there's an outer edging, not technically piping, but it depends upon whose definition that you are following.
Sure, kind of looks like piping, doesn't it?
Well, that was the idea, and that worked. So that added another level of intrigue for not just young kids, but for older viewers.
Okay.
And
all right, so what else would you like to tell us about this that I haven't asked you?
It is, well, we have the yo-yos, stacked yo-yos, and this was actually a challenge of our local quilt guild. We had these fabrics that we needed to work into the quilt, so I thought yo-yos would be good. So those levels of yo-yos, and they're also stacked and have buttons on top.
So you have 4 yo-yos with buttons
3
on
in
top.
some, and 2 in some. And again, if you're a quilter who just loves to embellish, and I do, I could just embellish it to death, but I thought, I love the stacked yo-yos because it parallels the stacked buttons, and again, kids are intrigued with all of the stuff that they can look at. So this is incredible fun to make. And you can do anything with it.
Well, it's another beautiful quilt, and it's another fun quilt that people have a good time looking at.
I hope so.
And I hope, do you know, I still want you to make one of these with somebody's grandchildren, where they do a sports figure in football and baseball, and wouldn't that make a wonderful gift for somebody's grandparents?
But anybody can do that. They can pick up the Trispective book, they can figure that out, it's not that hard, and then they can make one for whatever fits their family.
Yes.
Or it can be grandfather, father, and son.
Sure.
Or grandmother, mother, and granddaughter, you name it, it is endless as far as what you can do with that particular technique.
Well, it's a wonderful technique, and we're glad you shared another one with us here at AQS Quilt Week. And I hope that you'll enter your quilts in Quilt Week so that we can share yours next time. And all the rules for 2018 are available now on QuiltWeek.com. So go check out the rules and get your entries in.